Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is the show where we take a piece of source material. Sometimes it's complex, sometimes, like today, it seems deceptively simple, and we just really unpack it.
Yeah, and today's source is fascinating. It's this very concise list, just 10 daily habits that promise to make you more intelligent.
Right, and it's so direct. It's a blueprint.
It really is. It's presented as a kind of high-leverage challenge.
Exactly. And when we first looked at this list, I mean, the immediate thought was, okay, we all know this stuff. Get more sleep, drink water. It feels like we could just breeze right past it.
That's the trap, though. The real mission today isn't just to read off a checklist.
No.
Our job is to dig into the mechanism. Why does reading, say, just a few pages a day actually create a measurable change in your brain?
Or why does asking a question, something that feels so simple, fundamentally reshape how you think?
We have to move past the surface level advice and really get into the scientific and, I guess, philosophical scaffolding underneath it all.
We need to understand how they work.
Why? If you get the why, these things stop being vague, nice to have health tips, and they become, targeted strategies, non-negotiable strategies for really maximizing your own mental capacity.
So we're aiming to turn this simple advice into a cognitive toolkit for you.
For the learner, yes.
And to do that, to make sure we see how they all connect, we've grouped these 10 habits into 4 categories.
Right, a kind of system.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to start with the absolute basics, what we're calling foundational needs. The physical engine. Then we'll look at how we fuel that engine. That's information input.
The raw material.
After that, it's about what you do with that material, so active processing and output.
And finally, we zoom out. We look at external growth, your environment and how that pushes you. It's a complete ecosystem. You can't really focus on one part if the others are failing.
They all build on each other. It's a step-by-step process.
It is. Step by predictable step.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with those physical foundations of intelligence. The stuff you just have to get right for any of the high-level thinking to happen.
The prerequisites.
So section I is all about the biological absolutes. These are the things that, if you neglect them, nothing else really works, right?
Right. It doesn't matter how many books you read if the hardware isn't running properly.
Exactly. We're talking about 3 specific habits here from the list. Prioritizing sleep, consistent hydration, and taking small breaks.
I like to think of the brain as this incredibly complex city. It's not just a computer. It needs, stable electricity, clean water, and a really efficient waste management system.
That's a great analogy.
And these 3 habits, they're the utilities. They're totally non-negotiable for the city to function.
They dictate your capacity before you even sit down to work.
Absolutely. So sleep is the first one.
Habit number 3 from the source, prioritizing sleep. And it's very firm. It says good sleep makes your brain strong, and you should aim for 7 to 8 hours every single night. I want to focus on that phrase, makes your brain strong. It's not just rested, it's strong. And why that specific window, 7 to 8 hours? What's happening in there?
That 7 to 8 hour window is crucial because that's the time it takes for the brain to complete its full cycle of repairs and organization. It has to go through light sleep, deep, slow wave sleep, REM sleep. All of them have a job.
And when the source says strong, what does that actually mean on a biological level?
Well, it refers to 2 really high-stakes processes that are critical for intelligence.
Okay.
The first one is memory consolidation.
Right, so filing away everything from the day.
Exactly. Everything you learn, that new vocabulary from the book you read, the concepts from the podcast you listened to, it's all initially stored in these really fragile, temporary holding patterns, mostly in a part of the brain called the hippocampus.
So it's not permanent yet?
Not at all. During deep and REM sleep, the brain is actively replaying that information. It's transferring it, weaving it into your permanent long-term memory networks in the cortex. It's physically strengthening the connections between neurons.
So that is the strength. It's a literal physical strengthening of connections.
It is. So if you cut your sleep short, even by an hour, that transfer process is incomplete. And some of that information you work so hard to learn is just lost, or it's much harder to retrieve.
So if you pull an all-nighter to study for a test, you're actually sabotaging the very work you're trying to do. You're just not saving the file properly.
That's a perfect way to put it. Sleep is the final mandatory step of the learning process itself. It's not downtime.
Wow. Okay, so that's process number 1. What's the second?
The second process is all about that clear thinking the source mentions. It's detoxification. It's the brain's cleaning cycle.
Cleaning?
Yeah. As your brain cells fire all day long, they produce metabolic waste. waste. Think of it like exhaust fumes. One of the main ones is a protein called beta-amyloid.
I've heard of that. It's linked to some pretty serious neurodegenerative diseases.
It is, and during the day when you're awake, the brain is too busy to really clean house effectively. But when you get into that deep sleep, something amazing happens. The brain's plumbing system, which is called the glymphatic system, basically kicks into high gear.
The glymphatic system, that's
Yeah.
a term we should probably unpack a little.
Definitely. So think of it as the brain's specialized drainage system. It's not like the lymphatic system in the rest of your body.
Yeah.
During deep sleep, cerebrospinal fluid flows really rapidly through the brain tissue itself.
Okay.
And it literally washes away all that mental sludge, all those toxic byproducts that built up during the day.
So it's a power wash for the brain.
It really is. And that flushing action is at its most powerful during that 7 to 8 hour sleep cycle. If you don't give the system enough time to run, that waste accumulates.
And that's what causes that foggy feeling, the lack of clarity.
That's exactly it. That accumulation directly impairs how well your neurons can communicate with each other. It leads to cognitive fog, slower thinking, poor focus, all the things we associate with being tired.
This makes the connection so clear for anyone trying to learn. If you're actively studying or reading, you're making your brain work harder, so you're generating more of that metabolic waste.
You are, which means the need for that full 7 to 8 hour cleanup cycle becomes even more critical.
So that idea of sacrificing an hour of sleep to get in one more hour of study it's just a terrible trade-off.
It's a guaranteed negative return on your investment. The clarity and the strength you gain from a full night's sleep provides the baseline processing power that makes all the other 9 habits even possible.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Let's move from that nightly restoration to what we do during the day. Hydration. Habit 4 says the brain needs water to work well, and drinking it frequently helps you focus and stay calm. I want to highlight that dual benefit again, focus and calm. They feel related, but they're different.
They are, and they're both directly tied to the physics of the brain. I mean, the brain is about 75% water, and even a tiny dip in your body's water level, we're talking as little as 1 or 2%, is registered immediately by your nervous system.
So when the source says it needs water to work well, what does that mean at the cellular level?
It's about the speed and efficiency of electrical communication.
Okay, so why is it so immediate? Why do I feel like I lose focus so quickly if I just forget to drink water for a couple of hours?
It all comes down to electrolytes. Water maintains the proper balance of salts, sodium, potassium, which are absolutely essential for your neurons to fire an electrical signal.
Right.
When you get dehydrated, that balance gets thrown off, and it literally slows down the speed and the precision of neural communication.
So my thoughts are actually physically moving slower.
Yes, and that translates directly into what you experience as a loss of focus. You'll have trouble sustaining your attention, you might make more errors, you feel that mental fatigue. You're just burning way more energy to do basic mental tasks.
That sounds like a massive energy drain for something with such a simple fix. Just drink some water.
It's the easiest performance hack there is, and it's the one we overlook the most. People reach for another cup of coffee when really a big glass of water is often what they actually need.
Okay, and what about the stay calm part? How does water affect emotional regulation?
Dehydration is a physiological stressor. Your body perceives it as a threat, an imbalance. And when that happens, it triggers the release of stress hormones.
Cortisol.
Cortisol especially. And cortisol directly interferes with your prefrontal cortex.
Which is the part of our brain responsible for
Rational thought, right.
decision-making.
Rational thought, emotional control, planning, all the executive functions. So when cortisol levels are high because you're dehydrated, you become more irritable, more anxious. You have less of a buffer against stress.
So being even mildly dehydrated is actively making us more emotionally volatile?
Absolutely. A well-hydrated brain has better blood flow, better nutrient delivery. It maintains a kind of chemical balance that gives you a crucial physical buffer against stress. It lets you stay calm and focused enough to tackle hard problems.
The connection between a glass of water and mental clarity is just so direct and powerful.
It is.
It sounds almost too simple, which might be why we ignore it. Is it just that we forget, or is there some kind of mental hurdle here?
I think that's a really good point. We tend to undervalue simple solutions. We assume that a complex problem, like being smarter, must require a complex solution.
Right.
The failure here is often just a lack of intentionality. To make this habit stick, you need a system. Get a big water bottle and keep it on your desk. Set a reminder on your phone. Make it visible, make it easy.
So that afternoon slump a lot of us feel might not be a failure of willpower at all.
More often than not, it's a simple failure of physics and biology, and it's incredibly easy to fix.
Okay, this brings us to the third foundational habit, which is kind of related. Habit number 7, taking small breaks.
Ah, yes. The micro rests.
Exactly. It loops back to this idea of mandatory downtime, but this time it's during the workday. The source says, do not work all day without stopping. Short breaks are essential for the brain to learn well.
This one is so important because it directly challenges the myth of the grind. You know, this idea that continuous focused effort is always better.
The productivity myth.
Right. In reality, that kind of continuous focused work just pushes the brain into a state of diminishing returns. Focused thinking is necessary, of course, but it's incredibly demanding, metabolically speaking, and it's very rigid.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting for me. Why are these short conscious breaks actually better for learning than just powering through?
Because deep understanding, the kind of insight that really boosts intelligence, requires pattern recognition. It requires synthesis. And those processes happen best when your focused attention system is temporarily turned off.
So you need to switch modes.
You have to switch modes. This is the difference between focus mode and what scientists call diffuse mode thinking.
So the focus mode is like a laser beam.
A laser beam, yes. Intense, precise, great for executing a known task.
And the break activates?
What?
A floodlight.
That is a perfect analogy. The diffuse mode is the floodlight. It's broad, it illuminates the whole landscape, and it connects different, seemingly unrelated parts of your brain.
And that's when the aha moments happen.
That's exactly when they happen. It's during that rest, when you get up, you stretch, you look out the window, that your subconscious mind starts running these background programs. It starts connecting the new information you were just focused on to the massive network of information you already have stored.
So the break isn't just about resting your eyes or grabbing a coffee. It's about intentionally giving your brain permission to switch gears and connect dots you couldn't see when you were staring at the problem up close.
Yes. The break allows for incubation. But the key is that it has to be a real cognitive shift.
What do you mean by that?
Well, scrolling through a stressful news feed or checking your work email isn't a break. That's just a different kind of focused work. A real break is a walk, maybe some light stretching, a casual chat with a coworker, something that lets your mind wander.
So the source says the brain needs rest to learn well. This means the break is actually when the raw data starts turning into integrated knowledge.
Precisely. It's a form of mandated downtime that is just as important for performance as the 7 to 8 hours of sleep we talked about, just on a different time scale.
So that covers the physical prerequisites. The engine is clean, it's hydrated, and we're giving it strategic rest periods.
Now it's ready for some fuel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now we can move on to the raw material of intellectual growth. All right, we've set the physical stage. The brain is primed and ready to go. Now we get into section 2, input and absorption. How do we feed this well-maintained machine?
This is where intelligence really begins to build. It's all about the volume and, more importantly, the consistency and the quality of the information you're taking in.
And this section covers 3 habits that work together really well. Reading a little every day, listening to new information, and the one that drives them all, curiosity.
Right. These 3 habits are all about systematic, low effort, but really high return methods for continuously feeding your brain new material.
Let's start with habit number 1, reading a little every day. What I love about this one is the low barrier to entry. The source says you don't need a big book, just a few pages every day. That focus on a little is key, isn't it? We so often overlook the power of small, consistent actions.
It's brilliant because it gets right to the heart of habit formation. It's about consistency over intensity.
Right.
If your goal is sustainable cognitive growth, trying to force yourself to read for 2 hours a day is it's a recipe for burnout. But by making the commitment tiny, just a few pages, you eliminate the friction. The habit becomes sticky.
It's easy to integrate into even the busiest day. But let's be practical. What is the real cognitive benefit of such a small amount of reading? How do a few pages a day actually move the needle on intelligence?
It works through the principle of compounding, but specifically through something I'd call linguistic precision.
Okay, what do you mean by that?
Reading, even short passages of good writing, exposes you to language that is used very carefully and precisely. Every new word you learn isn't just another fact to memorize, it's an expansion of your entire tool set for thinking.
So a bigger vocabulary doesn't just help you with a crossword puzzle, It literally makes your thinking more refined because you have more precise concepts to work with.
That's exactly it. You have more accurate buckets to sort your ideas into. When you read consistently, you are training your internal editor. You're refining your own conceptual map of the world.
And there's another benefit too, right? In our world of constant distraction.
Oh, absolutely. The act of reading trains sustained, linear attention. In an age of endless scrolling and fragmented focus, just the simple act of following a complex argument or a story, even for a few pages, day after day, that's like taking your brain to the gym. It builds cognitive stamina.
And what about the new ideas part of the habit? How are we really absorbing and synthesizing complex new ideas from such a short session?
That goes back to what the source calls the power of incremental learning. You can think of it as a kind of slow drip infusion of knowledge.
I like that.
You're introducing small, manageable doses of novelty and complexity into your system every day. If you're consistently reading material that just slightly challenges you, your brain is forced to adapt and accommodate that novelty.
And over time, that adds up.
Over a month, those few pages a day become 100 pages. Over a year, it's a dozen books.
Yeah.
You've built up a substantial body of knowledge that fundamentally changes your understanding of a topic. It's the consistent exposure that builds a steady stream of raw material for the other habits to work on.
Which is a perfect transition to the next input habit, number 5, listening to new information.
The modern classroom.
Yes. The source says podcasts, videos, short lessons, even just 10 minutes a day can make you smarter. And it repeats that theme. Learning little by little is very powerful.
This habit is just a masterclass in efficiency. It recognizes that so much of modern life is filled with what used to be passive moments.
The commute, doing the dishes, going for a run.
Exactly. And this habit turns all of that dead time into active learning time without you having to find an extra hour in your day.
And if you actually quantify that, 10 minutes a day, 5 days a week, that's almost an hour a week. It's over 40 hours of focused learning in a year.
It's a staggering amount of time. And you didn't have to sacrifice anything to get it. It makes that huge, impossible task of finding time to learn suddenly seem very manageable.
So let's dive into the cognitive side. How is listening to information different from reading it? They're both inputs, but they must challenge the brain in different ways.
That's a great question. They absolutely do. Reading is visual, it's spatial, and it's self-paced. You can stop, you can go back, you can reread a sentence as many times as you need to.
But with listening, you're on the speaker's time. It's linear, it's auditory, and you have to process it in real time.
Precisely, and that trains a different set of mental muscles. Listening to a complex argument, for instance, trains real-time synthesis. You have to follow the logical chain as it's being built.
Which demands a higher level of attention.
It does. It enhances what we call auditory working memory. You're training your ability to hold a complex idea in your head that's built purely out of sound, without the visual anchor of the page.
That's a skill that can get really weak if all you do is read. It forces you to build mental models on the fly.
It's a different kind of engagement. And what's more, this medium audio, it just widens the pool of expertise you can draw from. You can listen to experts and thinkers you might never have discovered in print. It expands your intellectual horizons.
So that 10-minute habit makes sophisticated learning just an effortless part of your daily rhythm. Okay, now we come to the one that powers it all. Habit 10, which really feels like the ignition key for this whole section. Be curious about the world.
The spark plug.
Yeah, the source says, look around and wonder, why is this like that? And it calls curiosity the key to intelligence because it makes learning fun and natural.
If reading and listening are the intake valves for the engine, curiosity is what ignites the fuel. Without it, reading a few pages or listening for 10 minutes is a chore. It's an obligation.
It's something you should do.
Right. But genuine curiosity flips that switch. It changes, I should learn this, to I must know this.
This feels like the most profound habit on the whole list to me. If I'm forced to read a book for a class, I'll retain maybe 10% of it. But if I read that same book because I desperately need to answer a question that's been bugging me,
the information just sticks.
Effortlessly.
And that difference is measurable in the brain. Genuine curiosity engages the brain's internal reward system. When you find a piece of information that you are actively seeking, something that fills a gap in your knowledge, your brain releases dopamine.
So it feels good to learn. The brain is literally rewarding the act of investigation.
Exactly. And the dopamine release doesn't just happen when you find the answer. It often happens during the pursuit of the answer. The hunt itself is rewarding.
And that's why the source says it makes learning fun and natural. The whole process becomes self-reinforcing. The information gets tagged by your brain as valuable, which makes you remember it far better than if you were just trying to memorize facts.
Curiosity is the ultimate intrinsic motivator.
And that simple instruction, look around and wonder, why is this like that, is so powerful. It changes you from being a passive consumer of your environment to being an active investigator.
It cultivates an investigative posture. True intelligence isn't about what you already know. It's about the drive to constantly bridge the gap between what you know and what you could know.
So asking why about something mundane like, why is the sky blue or why is my coffee bitter?
It forces you to shift from just passively accepting reality to actively seeking the underlying mechanisms and principles. And that kind of systemic thinking is the absolute hallmark of intellectual growth. It guarantees that you'll always have a steady flow of high-quality, intrinsically motivated questions to feed your reading and listening habits.
So the engine is primed, and we've been feeding it a steady diet of high-quality information. Now we get to the crucial middle step, Section 3, output and processing.
This is where the magic happens.
It is, because intelligence isn't measured by what you can take in, but by what you can do with it. What you can articulate, what you can utilize.
Right. All that input from Section 2 is basically useless if it just sits there. It has to be synthesized, it has to be clarified, and you have to identify the flaws in it.
And this section focuses on 2 habits designed to do just that: asking questions and writing your thoughts.
These habits demand active engagement. They force you to take those ephemeral thoughts floating around in your head and turn them into concrete instructions.
Okay, let's start with habit number 2. Ask questions. The source says smart people ask questions. When you don't understand something, ask. It keeps your mind active. We have to talk about the social hurdle here first. That fear. The fear that asking a question makes you look stupid.
Oh, that fear is probably the single biggest roadblock to intellectual growth for so many people.
I think so too.
We have to completely reframe what a question is. It is not a confession of ignorance. It's a demonstration of engagement. It shows rigor.
So the person who's too proud or too scared to ask the question is the one who's actually ensuring their own misunderstanding continues.
Exactly. They're choosing to let a gap in their knowledge become permanent. The truly smart person in the room understands that an unanswered question is a dead end. It stalls all further learning on that topic.
So what makes a question a smart question in this context? Because just saying, I don't get it, isn't always helpful.
That's a good distinction. A smart question targets a specific gap. It shows that the person asking has already done some work. They've tried to synthesize the information.
Can we break that down? Are there different types of smart questions?
I think so. You have questions of clarification, like when you say X, do you mean Y? You have questions of application, like how would this concept work in this other situation? And you have questions of challenge, where you test the underlying premise.
All of them are active tools.
Very active cognitive tools.
So the functional benefit is you get an answer and you clear things up. But the source says the cognitive benefit is that it keeps the mind active. How does articulating that you don't know something actually prove your mind is working hard?
Because you can't form a good, specific question without first engaging in some serious metacognition.
Thinking about your own thinking.
Right. Before you can ask, what's the key difference between these two ideas? Your mind has to review what it knows about both ideas, it has to compare them, and it has to pinpoint the exact spot where the information gets fuzzy or seems to conflict.
I see. So the real intellectual work isn't in hearing the answer. It's in the process of formulating the question itself.
That's the key insight. The question is the output of a complex analytical process. It proves your mind is actively wrestling with the material, not just passively absorbing it like a sponge.
So you're basically teaching your brain to be precise about its own ignorance, which is a powerful skill.
It's one of the most powerful skills. You're defining the boundaries of your knowledge so you know exactly where to build next.
Okay, that leads us perfectly into the other output habit. Number 6, writing your thoughts.
The ultimate clarity tool.
It really is.
Yeah.
And again, the commitment is so refreshingly small. The source says writing helps you understand your own ideas. You can write a small journal. Just a few lines a day is enough.
And that low bar is essential, but the impact is it's transformative.
Why? What is it about the physical act of writing that forces clarity?
Because writing is fundamentally an act of imposed logic. It's structural. When ideas and arguments are just bouncing around inside your head, they can be messy, they can be contradictory, they can be full of holes. but they feel complete. They feel brilliant.
Oh, I know that feeling well. You have this perfect, elegant idea in your mind, and the second you try to explain it to someone or write it down.
It just evaporates. Or it turns out to be complete nonsense.
Yes. Why does that happen?
It's because the physical, sequential process of writing forces you to pin that chaos to the page. You have to follow the rules of grammar and syntax and logic. You have to commit to one thought following another in a coherent sequence.
So writing is like an instant diagnostic tool for the quality of your own thinking. It forces that vague feeling of knowing something into the concrete structure of an articulated thought.
Precisely. The moment you see your ideas written down, you can instantly spot the logical leaps, the weak transitions, the unproven assumptions, all the things that were invisible when they were just thoughts.
So writing is like having a conversation with yourself, a very critical conversation partner.
It's the best conversation partner because it doesn't let you get away with anything.
The source mentions a small journal. I think it's important to stress that this isn't about keeping a diary of your day. This is an intellectual tool.
It's intellectual sparring. You should be using those few lines every day to try to explain a concept from your reading, or to try to answer one of your own questions from habit 2, or to explore how a new idea connects with something you already believe.
So it's a daily practice of building mental muscle memory for clear reasoning.
Yes. The simple, repetitive act of translating that internal noise into coherent external text refines your understanding like almost nothing else. It moves an idea from being a vague awareness into being structured, actionable knowledge.
All right, so we've built the foundation, we've taken in the knowledge, and we started to process it through questioning and writing. This final section, section 4, is all about making sure this whole cognitive engine never gets stuck in a rut.
Right. Because intelligence isn't static. It has to be challenged to grow. It thrives on novelty and, I'd say, social friction.
I like that, social friction. And the 2 habits in this section are perfect for that, trying new things and spending time with smart people.
These 2 ensure that the systems we've just built are constantly being pushed beyond their current limits. Growth only ever happens outside your comfort zone.
Let's start with habit number 8, trying new things. The source says new activities help your brain grow. The advice is really broad here. Try a new hobby, a new food, a new place, and the payoff it promises is huge. Your mind becomes more open and creative.
So this is where we can talk about neuroplasticity, but in a really accessible way.
Good.
When we do our normal, familiar routines, driving the same way to work every day, doing the same tasks at our job, our brain operates on these incredibly efficient, well-worn neural pathways. They're like superhighways.
There's no real effort involved. It's automatic.
Exactly. Minimal strain, which means minimal growth.
So what happens when we throw something new into the mix? If I decide to learn, say, 5 words in a new language, or I try a food I've never tasted, how does that make my brain literally grow?
That novelty forces your brain off the superhighway. When you try to learn a complex new skill, like playing an instrument, or even something simpler like navigating a new part of town, your brain has to create new pathways.
Building new roads.
It's building new dirt roads at first, yes. And eventually those dirt roads can become new connections between your existing superhighways. That process is neuroplasticity in action. It's the brain physically changing its own structure in response to new demands.
And what about the mind becoming more open and creative? Is that just a nice feeling, or is that a real, measurable cognitive benefit?
Oh, it's very real. The scientific term for it is cognitive flexibility. Someone who regularly exposes themselves to novelty becomes less rigid in their thinking.
How so?
They get better at handling uncertainty. They're better at switching between different types of tasks. And crucially for creativity, they get much better at drawing analogies and making connections between seemingly unrelated fields.
So even something as small as trying a new kind of food is like a microdose of that training.
It's a microdose of challenging your sensory expectations, yes. And learning a new hobby is the macro version, demanding sustained, complex problem solving in a field where you have zero expertise.
So the real benefit isn't necessarily becoming a master at the new skill.
Not at all.
It's the practice and adaptation itself. It makes your whole cognitive system more nimble, more resilient.
Precisely. You're building what's called a cognitive reserve. You're building a resilience to change. By intentionally practicing being a beginner, you start to see confusion and challenge not as threats, but as opportunities for growth.
And that open, exploratory mindset is essential for fueling the curiosity we talked about earlier.
It all connects.
Okay, our final habit, number 9, Shifts from that internal novelty to external influence. Spending time with smart people.
The conversation catalyst.
I love that. The source says, talk to people who inspire you. Good conversations make you think deeply. It presents intelligence as a social pursuit.
It is a fundamental acknowledgement that your intellectual environment acts as a constant feedback loop. It's a form of intellectual osmosis. If you surround yourself with people who prioritize learning and critical thinking and challenging each other's ideas,
you will inevitably raise your own standards to match.
You have to.
But I need to push back on this a little bit. What if you're in a job or you live in a town where you genuinely feel like you don't have access to quote-unquote smart people, academics, big thinkers? Can't you just get the same benefit from books? Is that social part truly indispensable?
That's an excellent and really necessary challenge to that idea. And I'd say, yes, the social component is indispensable, but we have to broaden our definition of smart people.
Okay.
It doesn't just mean people with advanced degrees. A smart person, in this context, is anyone who has a level of mastery or a deep perspective that's different from your own and who engages in critical thought.
So it could be a master carpenter who thinks deeply about the properties of wood.
Or a highly disciplined athlete who can articulate the mental game of their sport. Or even just someone who holds a political view that's the complete opposite of yours, but they can defend it logically and thoughtfully.
So it's about surrounding yourself with intellectual rigor, no matter the subject.
That's it. And the conversations have to be good or deep, as the source says. A good conversation isn't just you passively absorbing facts from someone who knows more than you.
It's a two-way street.
It's a two-way street where you have to intellectually wrestle with an idea. You have to defend your own assumptions. You have to try to integrate a conflicting viewpoint into your own model of the world.
It's the friction that creates the new insights. It prevents you from living in an echo chamber.
That's the perfect term for it. It's an echo chamber breaker.
The source also mentions inspiration. How does that feeling of being inspired by someone else actually motivate our efforts across all these other habits?
Inspiration provides a living, breathing proof of concept. When you talk to someone who genuinely inspires you, someone who just embodies clear thinking or creative problem solving, you see the payoff of all this hard work.
You see what's possible.
You see what's possible. It motivates you because the desired outcome is right there in front of you. And it creates this powerful, virtuous cycle. You practice these habits, you become a more insightful conversationalist yourself, which then attracts more interesting and challenging people into your orbit, who then inspire you to work even harder. It's continuous self-improvement powered by human connection.
Wow. This has been a really, really insightful deep dive. We started with what seemed like 10 very simple habits.
Deceptively simple.
Deceptively simple. From, getting enough sleep and drinking water, all the way to the power of curiosity and social friction. And I think we've shown step by step how each one is a critical pillar for robust cognitive health and continuous learning.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is the synergy. These 10 levers, when you start to pull them together, they create a self-sustaining system.
You really do.
The clarity you get from good sleep and hydration makes your 10 minutes of listening so much more effective. The ideas you get from reading are then hammered into shape by the act of writing.
So intelligence isn't some fixed number you're born with.
Not at all. It's the observable outcome of these daily, small, repeatable, and interconnected actions.
It truly grows, as the source kept saying, step by step. You're never just stuck at your current level. You're always just one small, consistent habit away from a real improvement.
And we've given you the why. We've unpacked the mechanism behind every single step, so now the ball is in your court. The task shifts to application.
And you don't have to do all 10 things starting tomorrow. That would be overwhelming.
No, please don't. The best way to start is to identify the weakest link in your own intellectual chain right now.
So start with one habit today. Just one. Maybe your foundation is a bit shaky, and the single most impactful thing you can do is just commit to drinking from a big water bottle all day. That's habit 4.
Or maybe your input is too passive. Maybe you commit to asking one specific, well-formulated question during your next work meeting. That's habit 2.
So the question for you is, which one habit, now that you understand the profound mechanism behind it, feels both the most accessible and the highest leverage for you right now?
So what does this all mean?
It means that the highest levels of clarity and intelligence aren't reserved for a select few. They're available to anyone who is willing to apply simple discipline consistently.
Yeah.
You have the blueprint now.
And if curiosity is that key that makes all this learning feel fun and natural, we want to leave you with one final thought. What is one major, why is this like that?
Question about the world, about your job, about anything that you've been ignoring, something you just assumed was too complex or too inaccessible to understand.
How will embracing that one question and really allowing it to guide your reading and your conversations for the next week, how will that redefine your next 7 days? Go find the answer.